Hello and welcome to the Soup Doctor. Today on the Soup Doctor, we're going to be making a classic Italian soup, Escarole bean. Now with any good soup, there is a formula for success, as there is with health. And chiropractors have been talking about this for 110 years, which is eating right, exercising, managing your stress, getting your rest, and taking care of your spine and nervous system. So what we're going to do today is talk about the basics of this formula. Now I was on the treadmill today at the gym reading a cooking magazine, and it had an excellent recipe for tomato and clam type of soup. So I had my heart set on demonstrating that today, and then I was disappointed when I got to the market to see that tomatoes were relatively expensive, clams were relatively expensive. So I switched gears, and I said I'm going to stick to the formula and just change the ingredients. So I saw that escarole was looking good and relatively inexpensive. I saw that white beans, as usual, are relatively inexpensive. And I saw that ground turkey was on special. So instead of forcing that tomato and clam soup, I said, let me try escarole bean today. So that's what we're going to start with. Now our ingredients are, as always, a mirepoix, onions, celery, and carrot. We're also going to have some sliced garlic and ground turkey, white bean, and of course the escarole. Now I've cut the onions a little differently. Usually I chop them. Today I cut them in slices because it works better with the escarole. They kind of match up in size and they add a little bit more texture at the end of the soup. Now we also have a lot of celery leaf in here today. Celery leaf has an excellent flavor and it's got actually more nutrition than the stalk of the celery itself. Now I've sliced the garlic and I'm going to add that halfway through sweating the onions. So we're going to do about 4 minutes of sweating the onions. We're going to add the garlic, sweat it another 3-4 minutes. Then we're going to add the celery, the carrot, and sweat them for another 5 to 7 minutes until they're all wilted and ready to go. Okay, so while the mirepoix is sweating, I want to take a moment to talk about nutrition. Now if you've noticed, the majority of the soups we make are broth-based. They're high in protein, as you see with the beans and the turkey, and high in vegetables with the mirepoix and so forth with the escarole. Now, high protein, high vegetable, high fiber is a key to a healthy blood sugar. Now, if you get tired after you eat, or you're cranky before you eat and you feel better after you eat, you may either have insulin resistance or hypoglycemia. A healthy digestion and a healthy metabolism, you feel good consistently regardless of when you eat. So if you're having problems with either irritability before you eat or sleepiness after, high protein, high vegetable, high fiber, frequently every 3 hours is an excellent idea. And that's why a broth-based vegetable and protein soup is good at the in-between meal. Okay? So now what I'm going to do is demonstrate the escarole. Now this is the head of escarole. And escarole has a core, and most of it is completely edible, just have to shave the edge off. But it comes very dirty. Now, if you cut it in half, you'll notice that there's a lot of grit, okay? What you got to do is quarter the escaroles like so. And what you're going to do is just shave the very end off of the core. Everything else is extremely tender. Now, escarole is kind of like a cross between a celery and romaine lettuce in terms of its consistency. It's a little bit bitter. Now, when you sweat the escarole, you're going to decrease the bitterness. Okay, so what we're doing is kind of slicing it long ways. But before you even dream of putting escarole in a pot or any green leafy vegetable like kale or collard or something like that, you're going to need to wash it very good. So let's take a look how we do that. So here we are at the sink. Now it's filled with very clean water, and I only use dish soap to clean my sink because a sink could be used as a bowl, a vessel, something to clean lettuce like it is now, and never put any cleansers or chemicals in it. So we're going to add the escarole to the water, and you'll notice that the escarole floats, and that's the key because you want the grit to fall to the bottom, and you want the lettuce and the greens to kind of float on top. The cold water also kind of crisp up and firm the escarole, and when we sweat this, it's going to really reduce a lot of its volume. So what you do is you want to pick the greens out of the water. You do not want to drain it and then take the greens out because all the grit is on the bottom. You want to leave it there. Okay? So after we strain the greens, we can see I've already cleaned about 12 quarts worth. And after it's sweated down, it's going to only be about 4. It's also going to lose a lot of its bitterness. So the sweating process is very important in cooking greens. So let's go do that. So as you can see, the escarole fills just about the entire soup vessel here. And what you'll notice is after about 5 to 7 minutes, it'll lose at least half of this volume. So we've added the chicken stock. We're waiting for it to come to a simmer. And while we do that, let's talk about the remaining ingredients. Now, what we have here is white bean and ground turkey. Now I chose ground turkey because it was on special. You could use ground chicken, you could use whole chicken, you could use turkey sausage, but a little bit of protein in the bean and the turkey is always a good idea to add to the vegetable. Now what I did with this turkey in particular is I roasted it at 500 degrees. I sprinkled it with salt and pepper, dried oregano, red pepper flake, and dried basil. And I roasted it until it was caramelized or darkened on the top. And that's going to add flavor. It's also going to add texture, and it will hold itself together in the soup. So you see that darkness, that equals flavor, as opposed to what you see here, which is kind of just bland there. Now, once the soup is simmering for about 10 to 15 minutes, we're going to add these two ingredients, and we'll finish off the soup. So the soup's been simmering for about 15 minutes, and we're going to add the remaining ingredients. So we're going to pour the turkey in there, and we're going to add the white beans. Stir it all up, and let it simmer for another half hour, 45 minutes. So as you can see, the soup is reduced by a couple of inches, and it's ready for service. Now a nice garnish for this type of soup is maybe a little drizzle of fresh olive oil, a little shake of fresh Parmesan cheese on top right before service. And certain garnishes like scallion, fresh parsley, olive oil, grated cheese should always be added right before service in the bowl, and it really adds a nice little touch. So keep that in mind next time you're serving soup.